Hi, and welcome back to the HE Enable podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long-term health conditions in the UK higher education system. I'm Cath, and this week I am joined by Talia. Talia is the co-convener of the Disabled Students Network at the University of St Andrews, where they are reading for an MLitt in peacebuilding and mediation. We actually ended up having some great chats about nature photography in the run-up to the show, which I'm sure we will get to later. So we are going to have the higher education chat. We are also going to have, hopefully, some good talks about birding and nature photography today, which I'm very excited for. So yeah, that's enough from me. Let's get started. Hi, Talia. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm actually a really big fan of the show, so this is very exciting.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It warms my heart because I remember I cold messaged a bunch of SUs. I'm sure some people listening know that. And you were like, yeah, I actually listened to the show. And I was like, oh, like that doesn't happen very often. It's nice to see it happening. It's so sweet. I'm so glad you can make it on. So I know who you are. We've had a chat. Please could you introduce yourself to the listeners and share a little bit about your background in higher education?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Talia, and I studied philosophy and modern history for my undergraduate degree, and then in my master's, I'm doing peace building and mediation, which I think is really interesting. However, I'm not necessarily an IR person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm at St Andrews. I have 4 cats and I love birding. I'm also a wheelchair user.
That is all very cool and relevant information. What are the names of your cats?
They are tofu, rhubarb, toast, and truffle.
Oh my goodness, I love that. I will need cat pictures immediately after this interview. Um, so was your bachelor's at St Andrews as well?
Yes, yeah. I visited here when I was 14 and I fell in love with the campus. And then I moved here and I became a wheelchair user halfway through university. So, like, I wouldn't have necessarily chosen, like, I fell in love with the cobblestone streets that I now hate, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's been interesting.
I too have exclusively studied in old picturesque medieval cities with some really inaccessible stuff and you can't change it because it's listed. I am not a wheelchair user, but I do look at it sometimes. I'm like, ooh, how's that going to work? Because it's just very, very cobbled. So I think it's a good segue, if you are comfortable saying, how did your disabilities impact your experience of higher education?
So, I was diagnosed with ADHD and depression and kind of an alphabet soup of neurodivergence before coming to university. And so I got connected with the disability team first thing and kind of got some things in place in terms of extra time. And they were all very nice. There was some hesitancy about like transferring my information overseas because I'm an international student. Yeah. And then I became disabled, like physically disabled in my second year. And I just watched the university kind of just not know what to do. Like for planning my tutorials, St. Andrews is very old. And for one of my classes, I missed a full month of class because they just kept moving my tutorial to different inaccessible rooms. Like they moved it from a room with stairs to a room with 2 stairs and then to a room with a broken elevator.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it's definitely had an impact. And I was fortunate enough to get involved with my Disabled Students Network in like my 3rd year, and they're so great.
It was one of the first universities I reached out to, or the first like disabled student groups I reached out to. And because I think you already followed me or something, and I was like, these guys seem chill. But that's my only impression of, I've never been to St Andrews or engaged with your network in any other way, but that was immediately like the moment I just saw they were following, I followed back, I saw all the activities on Instagram, I was like, Yeah, this group seems really, really chill. So I'm really glad you found that.
It's like a pocket of sunshine in a very inaccessible town and in a place where like most of the societies are quite inaccessible as well.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that later, but there's such an active group. And you're now co-convening, which we will get to later. Very exciting. You've already kind of started with this, but did you encounter any obstacles during your time at uni? Did you overcome them? And if so, how? If there's anything ongoing as well, you can put that in too.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely encountered obstacles in terms of needing different types of assessments or, like having professors asking everyone in the room to stand up for like a poem and things like that. Or one of my biggest crusades right now at the university is the fact that wheelchair users don't have desks like in lectures, because
What?
if you think about it, like in lectures, there's the wheelchair spaces at the front. However, the desks, they're attached to the side of the chairs. So if you're a wheelchair user, you don't get a desk.
Oh no. There's not even like, because I know sometimes there are just a lot of the chairs have that, but then there are tables that wheelchair users can like wheel themselves under, and they've just not considered that.
They've not considered that at St. Andrews, at least. And also, like in classrooms where the desks are attached to the chairs and they're kind of those moving chairs. I would say that there's been a lot of obstacles just in terms of sometimes it feels like I'm one of the first wheelchair users that has been at the university.
That must be pretty isolating.
Yeah. And it's also at times it's dangerous. Like you get societies who won't host things in accessible places. And their fix for it is, oh, well, we've just carried wheelchair users up and down the stairs drunk in the past.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's getting better. And I think there's becoming more of an understanding of like how to treat people, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you find that the university was more accessible before you became a wheelchair user, and like in I guess the neurodivergent sense they were accommodating, and now there's like a whole host of new challenges?
I think it's different. I think that the university isn't necessarily accessible to all neurodiverse students, if that makes sense. Like, one of the biggest comments we get is that the lighting in the library is just this like fluorescent overhead awful
Big lights.
Yeah. People big light. um and so like I don't know, there's definitely things that like neurodiverse students struggle with, and some of the societies are quite conservative and will post things on their social media, which isn't always great. However, yeah, I think the support that I was getting from the university itself was probably better as a neurodiverse student versus as a physically disabled, like wheelchair user. Their solution is kind of just like, well, there's only one or two of you. So,
Yeah, and I guess because you acquired your disability and you became a wheelchair user during your studies, have they ever been like, but we couldn't anticipate it? And like, did that ever become a problem? Or
well, they talk about how in their admissions process, they have a form where you can reach out and you can declare your disability during the application process, and they can tell you whether or not they can support you.
okay.
However, in the Equality Act from 2010, institutions are required to be anticipatory of students' needs, and anyone can become disabled at any time. So I don't find that to be anticipatory of all of their students' needs.
Yeah, and it's kind of just having it in place by default, because that must have been very sudden when everything happened, and just like you must have been thinking about returning to university and being like, oh my goodness, these are all old listed buildings in an old university. Everything is stairs.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the university's only wheelchair accessible accommodation is half an hour outside of town. And I've had friends who have had their laptops break pushing in the rain
Oh.
because it takes so much longer to push. So I live in town. However, I live on the third floor.
Oh.
So I get carried in and out of my flat.
No lift.
No lift.
Oh, is this university accommodation?
No, it's not. However, the university accommodation was not, we decided it wouldn't be suitable, if that makes sense,
Mm.
because the only thing they could offer was so far out of town. And also, I can't physically push myself that far into town to get to my classes. So it didn't really make sense. Yeah, it's very interesting. Accommodation is one of the things we get so many complaints about.
I had a guest. It was Nicola when she came on the show, and it was very much so Nicola has cystic fibrosis, and the university for her masters, for the most part, are actually very good, masters or doctorate. But the accommodation, she would have been like needing to live close to campus. And apparently the adjustment for that just got lost behind some paperwork. Luckily it got resolved, but it almost stopped like Nicola from going to uni in the first place. It's such a big thing.
Yeah, we had a student last year who was trying to get allocated for their master's accommodation, and they needed certain accessibility features. And because they're a master's student and the timing that they needed to apply for accommodation was different, the university didn't have any more of this accommodation available. And they almost wound up not being able to attend university because they wouldn't have had safe accommodation. Universities need to build more accessible accommodation.
Yes, I feel like we're getting to the point, I'm really glad we're getting to the point where while we do have a lot of listed buildings, the big call for accessibility is also meaning that a lot of them are getting modified in a way that preserves the history of the place while also being very necessary. Cannot think of an example off the top of my head, but I have a feeling and I hope that it's happening. And that's so important because that shouldn't be what the barrier is to someone accessing education. Ideally, there shouldn't be any, right? But in the world that we live in, I feel there's always going to be something, whether it's a disability or at another intersection. And it's just about getting what we can get right. And I feel like that's such an easy win.
Yeah, I feel like it's so frustrating to hear not universities necessarily just, however, to hear people say like, oh, you can't modify this old building to make it accessible for aesthetics or because it's an old building and things like that. And it's just like, you're advocating for segregation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's maybe we just need to look at a bunch of like the old building laws in the UK and Scotland and England and Northern Ireland, everywhere, Wales, and just really consider, okay, we have these old listed buildings. Are they fit for purpose? Especially in education. Like, generally everywhere, but in education, I mean, correct me if you have a different opinion on this, but it's so much more than visiting, say, a cultural space that might be inaccessible, or more than something that you're visiting, for example, because you have such a vested interest in your education. Does it like hit harder when it's your university in particular where this just isn't happening?
It can, especially after several years of being here and being a wheelchair user. And it's almost every semester that I'm missing classes because I'm being put in an inaccessible room. Even though I've been a wheelchair user for years, timetabling knows. They know I'm going to email them. I think the listed building thing is so funny to me because I grew up in Italy in like this tiny medieval town, and I go back to visit, and the town is like at least 1,000 years older than St. Andrews. And every single shop, restaurant has like a metal ramp built over the steps, or like they've outfitted a bathroom to be accessible and have handrails. And sure, it's not perfect. However, like the intention is there. And I think that there needs to be so much more of this. I don't know, accessibility isn't optional.
Absolutely. And I was wondering, so this is your second degree at St. Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you said you acquired your disability and you started to become a wheelchair user in your second year. Did the consideration of accessibility make you consider applying elsewhere for your master's?
It did. I thought about it. However, also as a disabled person, the idea of moving with four cats
Oh, of course, yeah.
was quite intimidating.
No, fair enough.
So yeah, I'm thinking about maybe moving for my PhD. Yeah, I wasn't quite ready for that.
Were you kind of having this internal struggle? On the one hand, you have this physical disability, it's making things really hard. And on the other hand, you're neurodivergent, you don't really want to change things. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of logistics to move, and you were just like, was it just a case where you had to make a document and essentially do like a for and against table and just write everything down?
Pretty much. It's really, I'm not a big fan of change. And also, like, I cannot express to you how much I love this town, and not like the university necessarily. I do love the university and the student community. However, like, I love life. I love St. Andrews. It's my home. And like, I fell in love with it when I was so young, and I don't want to leave, even if it's so inaccessible.
And I'm guessing, like, you want to make it work. I'm guessing if you're doing postgraduate stuff there's also people researching in your area, which I'm kind of.
Well, that's kind of the issue where like I don't know if I'll do my PhD here because my focus is international financial institutions and neocolonialism. And St. Andrews has very few people that focus on that. So I might go somewhere else. We'll see.
Nice. Are you considering anywhere yet? Or
I'm looking at LSE, I'm looking at UCL, I'm looking East Anglia as well.
nice. I have a few guests coming on from actually all three of those universities, hopefully soon. I was in LSE, this like a couple of hours ago. I've come straight from chatting to someone there. I was chatting to some of the students there, and I was like, what disability roles do you have in the students union? And they were like, nothing. And we looked at the website and there was nothing there, but I know the UCL, for example, has a really great disability scene, and there's definitely stuff there. But that whole area of London is nice. All the universities are close together. UCL's maybe a little further out, but King's and LSE are really close together.
Yeah, and I imagine that the sidewalks will be slightly better than up here.
Yeah, I think. Oh, well, I've never been up to Fife, but I can imagine from where I've been to York and Oxford. Yeah, they were pretty good actually, especially because you have a lot more crossings for traffic, just because it's a city centre. I think that would make it a lot more accessible for you. If you ever come down to have a look, let me know. It'd be nice to meet. Anyway, let's move on. This is where it's going to get fun. So, were there any clubs, societies, or initiatives that made a significant positive difference to your experience of higher education?
I would say specifically there's one person who I would like to call out. Molly Reed. She was the previous convener of the Disabled Students Network and the education officer at one point, and she was in it for so long. However, she really inspired me to get involved with the Disabled Students Network. And she was one of the first people that really made me feel like being disabled at this university was okay, if that makes sense. Yeah, she was phenomenal. Just the Disabled Students Network in general has been great. And I think societies are difficult. However, I think it's been a positive thing to kind of introduce some of these people into planning around needs besides their own, if that makes sense.
Yes. They're learning on the job. Trial by fire.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And like if you invite people to do like a psychology study and like invite everyone, you should host it in an accessible location. However, yeah,
I guess it's just making things inclusive, isn't it? Like it's good, especially when you have the frameworks in place. So you know what I do with this show. I send a big couple of big documents. I don't want to make people read that much, but I send a couple of documents with the key information and send all the questions, and it's making stuff, I guess, physically and as cognitively accessible as possible and doing that. But not everyone knows. If you exist in the disability bubble for long enough, and neurodivergence, I'm using it as a catch-all here, if you end up in that bubble for long enough, it very much ends up like curse of knowledge, and you're like, oh my goodness, why is none of this accessible? Like, I could do this so much better. And it probably happens more often than people realize. I think that's how consultants are made in this area. So I guess that leads to the next question is what was accessing these groups like for you, for student societies?
I guess it used to be easier as a neurodivergent student. I loved the autism group that's run by Student Services, where like you can pair up with different buddies and stuff like that and go around. I think through different trial and error accessing these university groups, I kind of realized that it was better to look into non-university groups, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the Dundee Feminist Bird Club, they are great. They run all accessible events. There are local feminist bird club chapters all over the world, and they all run accessible, inclusive events, and they're great. So shout out Feminist Bird Club.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I think learning to look beyond university a little bit was big, and kind of finding community with old birders and, you know, feminist birders. Yeah, I think that was big in finding community.
That is so cool. I know Sophie was on the show a while ago. Wheelchair user at York, one of the directors of Disabled Students UK. Great person. And they were saying about how they did the same for wheelchair basketball. And they ended up finding a community league. And I think it's so nice. I get involved with my alumni societies, especially because Oxford throw a bunch of events in London, as as you would expect. But it means that I realise how much during my time at university, I didn't really get to mix with people from other generations. And you can end up, sure, that there might be older students here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty insular within a certain age demographic, especially at undergraduate. And I find those community groups so nice for just like diversifying the type and range of people you know. It can be really good for that. What do you think?
I have met some fascinating people through the Fife Bird Club, and that is just so many older gentlemen with so many opinions. However, one thing I think is nice is that since they're all kind of getting older, a lot of them understand a little bit more the vulnerability, I guess, in being human, and that we all need to make space for one another. It's nice in a lot of ways like that. However, also, they say some things.
Yeah, I feel like you also learn to consider different opinions.
as an autistic person with like such a strong like sense of justice and such an inability to shut up, I struggle. However, most of them are autistic as well, I think. Birding is a very autistic hobby.
I feel like sometimes it has some mainstream moments, but if you're identifying so many bird calls, you have like this is something that can very easily turn into a special interest. Is like listening for birds, identifying birds. Sitting outside and taking pictures of birds is pretty nice. I enjoy doing it. I have a camera too. And yeah, I can see how very quickly you could just end up in a rabbit hole of being like, oh, this is a wren or a or a chaffinch or whatever. And it's like, oh dear, here I go.
It's exactly that. Once you start identifying the birds, you have to know what every bird is. And there's this app called Merlin,
Yes.
which is like, yeah, Shazam for birds. It's so good. It really helped get me into birding because then I could actually figure out what that noise was.
I should introduce you to one of my friends. He's walking the Thames path as we record this. He also does a lot of, I don't know if it's birding specifically, he spends a lot of time out in the outdoors. I'm pretty sure he does a lot of birding. I will need to introduce you to my friend. But in London, birding's a little less fun, especially in Greater London, because everything in the park is a parakeet. It's a massive invasive species here. It's like, it's a finch, a parakeet, or like a blue tit or a great tit. And have fun and some geese.
We're starting to get some parakeets up here now. They're moving into Dundee.
How?
I don't know. Surely it's too cold up here. However, there's like a thriving community in Glasgow now, and now they're starting to move to Dundee. So I love the parakeets. I know that they're invasive. I know they're not good. I think they're fun to look at.
They're very fun to look at. I will say until you're trying to take photos of birds and realize that the only birds are parakeets. And then it's like, they're very fun coloured, but there's not much diversity. And yeah, I should just straight up ask you about birding. It's literally the next question. So you do birding and nature photography. Oh my goodness, how could we tell? What what got you into it, and what's your favourite thing about doing it?
I've got such a one-track mind. It's all birds. It happened last year when I was finishing my undergraduate degree, and I was the most stressed I had ever been in my entire life. I was so just in a rut, and like none of my normal coping mechanisms were working. And all of a sudden, I just started looking at birds. It started with the RSVP nature live cams, like the osprey cams.
Oh, cool.
And like I loved seeing them, and I could just watch them from my bed, which was so nice. They're so accessible, such a great way to feel connected to nature. I still watch them all the time. And then we set up a bird feeder.
I can see one behind you, yeah. Oh, so for a quick visual description, it's a lovely clear day where you are. Yeah, and there are 4 bird feeders out of what seems to be just like third-ish, quite high up in the building. You said you're on the 3rd floor, didn't you? Currently
Yep.
empty because they've probably been ransacked, but it is a gorgeous little sunset in Fife. End of visual description.
Yeah, it's sunny for once.
Ironically, not in London, which was a very good day to forget my umbrella at LSE. So, if you're at LSE and you're listening and you want to catch up, let me know. I'll need to go collect my umbrella from your campus this coming week. It should be the week commencing the 9th of March, 2026. But
Find Cath's umbrella.
oh no, I know where it is. It's been bailed out for me, but I don't want to go to central London for no reason. Yes, so you got into birding end of your final year, super stressed. There's now a load of bird feeders. Had a wonderful visual
Yes.
description. What's next?
My partner and I, we just started going on little adventures, little walks to feed, little strolls to feed the ducks. and things like that. And it just has gotten more and more extreme. Like, we have a massive scope, we've got a big camera, we've got tests, I don't know how many pairs of binoculars. And like everywhere we go, we're just identifying these birds. And it's quite difficult, I would say, as a wheelchair user to get to a lot of the places because some of them are like swamps.
Yeah, so I want to give you a second just to plug your Instagram page while I look at the locations you've traveled to on it. But I can put that in the description of the show so people can see what you do. So why don't you talk about it, and I'm gonna find some locations.
That's very kind. It's called Little Ringed Stoner with periods in between. So little dot ringed dot stoner. And that is because I'm a medical cannabis user and I love birds. And yeah, it started just because I was spamming my family members with all of the bird photos. And I realized that they wanted to see them, however, so I decided to start posting them on Instagram so then they could periodically be like nice bird photos. I think it's been fun. I think my favorite thing about the Instagram account is that I get to practice digital accessibility in each of my posts. I write image descriptions and audio descriptions and alt text, and it's one of the biggest things that like my university's Instagram page doesn't even do image descriptions, and so I think it's one of the easiest and most accessible ways to practice accessibility in your daily life, and it's my favorite thing about the account.
Yeah, I forgot about the audio descriptions. And I'm looking at them now, and I want to read a short one because like, you got to remember these are like pictures of birds. What's a short one? Audio description. This is some pictures and videos of moorhens. Normally there are audio descriptions on the stills as well. So audio description: a primarily instrumental chaotic jazz piece. The song begins with 4 sequential trumpet blasts before a quick drum solo, followed by a smooth entrance by the bass. The music grooves for around 20 seconds before a voice sings, "I think it's time we blow the scene. Get everybody and their stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam." And that is Tank. So that is the opening to Cowboy Bebop.
Yes, it is.
Nice. I was mean to start that, but the thing I was watching it on started at episode 2, and I haven't got around to finding and watching episode 1 yet. That's a jazz standard now, I think, Tank. It's a great piece of music.
It's phenomenal. We got gifted it on vinyl before we saw the show, and it's like one of our favorite discs now. So we had to watch the show after getting it.
That is so good. But like, I do image descriptions and I do my best to describe everything. But oh my goodness, the audio descriptions on your page do not need to exist. And I love them. And I do enjoy reading them when I have the spoons to read this big chunk of like super artsy text.
Oh, I know. Like the image descriptions and the audio descriptions, they really turn into essays sometimes. However, it's okay. I think it's made me a much better birder because I've started identifying the difference between male and female birds and different ages that they could be. So I put them in the image descriptions. And I just think that they've made me so much closer with the birds.
Yeah, like I'm gonna be honest, like I don't really upload. I put some squirrel pictures and bird stuff on Patreon recently because I was like, I want to give everyone something. And my image descriptions for animals are so lame. It's like, what's this? It is a squirrel in a park eating a nut. And it's curled up slightly. And then you're like writing these essays and I'm like, oh, I should probably step up here.
I just have like a list of questions that I kind of run through. Like, where is it in the photo? What's the lighting like? What direction is it facing? What's the background like? And I find that having like a list of questions to go through really helps because otherwise I forget and I just write bad ones.
I want you to run me through that creative process sometime. This next question, no is a complete answer for this one. I ask it to all of my guests. Have you experienced any instances of your disabilities, neurodivergence proving helpful in a higher education setting?
It has made me much better at being blunt to people. And I think that that is a strength, and that is something that all disabled people should learn, is to be very blunt to people, especially professors who, may continually ask for proof of your disability. Just send them photos of your colonoscopy. Just like, you got to assert dominance. Yeah, I think it's made me a much funnier person, and I think it's made me more creative in learning how to deal with things when things go wrong, because they go wrong so frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've acquired disability, but I've mainly acquired sass. Now, what do you need? Like,
Yeah. Asking for help. I would say it's also made me much better at asking for help. Not that disabled people should have to ask for help for everything. Things should be anticipatory. However, I think it's made me more able to rely on other people too.
and I think it's also a matter of, being blunt. I think I should say here, and I'm sure you agree, doesn't necessarily mean being unkind, but it's also like, I am so sick of this. Like, respectfully, you need to, here's everything. I'm having a hard time. I can't deal with this. Like, you can be blunt even if you're being kind. Like, hey, sorry, I don't have the energy. I can't do this right now. I agree that people should sometimes be more blunt with how they're doing it, especially because academia is a very, I say, neurodivergent occupation. And sometimes the lecturers themselves or staff are neurodivergent and disabled. But it doesn't mean that you can't be blunt when you need to be. Just make sure that you do it as kindly as you can in the circumstance that you're in.
And you be sure to publicly remind them when they aren't honoring your support plans. You be sure to remind them with an audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends. Sometimes it's very blameless. Like, sometimes, like, someone had left and the support plan didn't get circulated, and I was like, you guys are chill now, but the person before you messed up.
Yeah.
And it's a different context, but if it's happening continuously, especially if there's malicious intent, then yes, absolutely. If you don't feel comfortable publicizing it, at least, like, give yourself a paper trail.
Yeah, exactly. And always, like, reach out to the disability team or report and support it if a professor isn't honoring your support plan, because oftentimes universities go for years and years with, like, a professor that just isn't treating disabled students with respect, and they won't know about it. So I definitely encourage people to let their universities know.
Or your student reps. Like, I was a rep for so many years, and I'd have these conversations like, have you not been told this? I'm like, no, because you didn't tell me. And it was like, I was learning big things about departments. And it was like, the student union didn't tell you. It's like, no, lovely, I'm really sorry, that was your job. And I discover things very, very quickly. But yeah, part of it's trying to leave with kindness, but at some point, like, your patience and kindness might run out. And given the circumstances, that can be respectable. Like, I respect it. But also, yeah, so many people think that institutions know more than they do.
Yeah.
And it's a step you can take. I completely agree. Final few questions now. So I want to deviate a little from what I've written here, but it's going to stay very similar. So is there anything you wished you'd known about university before starting? But I also want to know if there's anything you wish you'd known about university before you acquired your physical disability and became a wheelchair user.
I guess before starting, I wish I knew how okay it would be to, like, fail at things and, like, to need help and to need a second try. Yes, things are difficult. However, if you need more time, that's okay. The people around you at your university, there are people, at least in my case, who really wanted me to succeed and who were willing to go the extra mile to make sure that I could. And so I think that I was like so unnecessarily hard on myself in situations where like, or like pushed through symptoms where like I could have just asked for help in certain situations, which is such a nice thing to be able to say. I think also I would have wished I'd known about my disabled students network from the jump. It wasn't told, like, I didn't know about it for several years at my institution. So if you're disabled and you like are a student, maybe look to see if your university has like a students network and try to connect with them. If they don't have one, start one. Ours only started in 2020 and it has quickly become very, very popular. So find other disabled students for sure is my other advice, because they'll have gone through it all before and they can help you.
And I want to add, if you go to a collegiate university as well, it might be that your common room doesn't have a disability officer or an EDI officer. They probably do at this point. But if not, go look in other colleges. Oxford and Cambridge have like 20, 30 colleges each. There will be something somewhere. Go digging. There will be something. And if you don't have the energy, see if someone can help you, because there are almost always communities at these universities. It's just a matter of finding them.
Or, you know, if you can't find a community at your university, there are online ones. There are things like Disabled Students UK runs like monthly online events, and those are so great for finding and meeting people.
Yeah, I think the events depend on the month. So some of them are community hangouts, and some of them you chat about. Say the report that came out recently that I did the episode with Murren on. But they always have something running, and they do their best to make it as accessible as possible. Obviously, they're lovely people. I do some work for them. It doesn't impact the work I do here, but I do always enjoy working with them. Even if sometimes I have to be more brutal than maybe their structure allows in terms of being critical of universities. It's run by some lovely folks who have been on the show before, and they're doing the best they can. Great guys. And there'll be other stuff as well. Like, I'm sure as the Disabled Leaders Network grows, that might be a potential outlet as well, and the Snowden Trust. And it's an area that's developing as well. I think it's just a matter of keeping an eye out.
Yeah. Oh, I would also just really quickly say, so many people will pay you for your feedback. Get paid. Get paid for giving feedback and like ranting to people about how bad your institution is at disability or whatever. Do that.
Good tip. We're gonna do a couple rapid fires and then we'll close up, all right? So, this is a fun one. You are the co-convener of the St. Andrews Disabled Students Network. I was wondering if you guys are working on anything right now in terms of bringing positive change, and what are you hoping to do?
So our big project for the end of the year is we have this tradition called MLitt, and basically that's where all the students run into the sea on May 1st before their exams, or after their exams now, I think. I don't know. It used to be before exams is the tradition, and it's to wash off your academic sins. However, it happens on a beach, which is not wheelchair accessible. So none of the traditions at St. Andrews are wheelchair accessible. So we are working to get beach wheelchairs, and we're going to host a sober bonfire and then do Disabled Students MLitt.
Oh, whoa, that's going to be relatively soon because we're recording this in early March. So are you already getting that moving, I guess?
Yes, yeah. I'm also the Got Limits coordinator, which is drug and alcohol safety. So I'm kind of already working on MLitt. I think it's going to be really fun. And I think it'll be nice because for so many disabled students, like all I hear is that like they haven't been able to participate in these traditions, like, and these traditions were one of the reasons why I came to the uni. So yeah, I think it'll be good.
That is so good. And last question.
Mhm.
We've spoken a lot today about different things, and it wasn't always positive, and sometimes that's just how it is. I'm sure that if people listen to my episodes, they're not like, oh, this person had a really cheery, positive experience. Like, sometimes it happens, right? But if we were to take all of your story and condense it down, what is one key takeaway you would like listeners to remember from your story?
If people aren't being inclusive towards you, that's not your fault. And you will find people who are willing to make accommodations for you. You don't have to spend time with people who are going to push you past your limits. You'll find a community. It may take a little bit. However, the right people are there.
Go find your people. Support networks come up time and time again. And they're so important. And it's one of the good things about running the show, because I have a great support network of people now. And sometimes you just got to make your own thing. Sometimes you don't have the energy, and that's okay. There'll be something there for you. Right, Talia, that is the end of our questions.
Find your birds.
Find your birds. Yes. Flock together.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
That is the closing. That's what we're going to close on. So, HE Enabled is the show dedicated to sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long-term health conditions in UK higher education. Talia has been a wonderful guest. I got in touch with them through contacting disability networks. If you are part of a disability network and not had the displeasure of me messaging you yet, cold messaging you out of the blue on Instagram, please do email me, get in touch. I would love to do some collaborations. If you want to support the show in another way, I have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the link tree that will be in the episode description. There's also Patreon, which has some updates as well as some fun nature photography, because I needed somewhere to throw my photos. So you get some activism stuff, and you also get some pretty neat pictures of like ducks and squirrels and parakeets and stuff. Sure. Talia reassures me some of the pictures are good. So
Pictures are great.
Thank you. We're going to leave it there, but yeah, Talia, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you.